how participatory tools can help in eliciting or emphasizing local knowledge, which I think is very much what we're doing for most of us here in our visual research in particular. So the floor is yours. 30, 40 minutes up to you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So, yeah, I'm going to talk about projects where I've been involved, focusing especially on the use of participatory methods to understand vulnerability and response to debris flow hazard in Georgian Caucasus. So, Georgia, ex-Soviet Union, faced very several type of risk of disasters like landslides, erosion, earthquakes, flooding. I wanted to show you something. Okay, so we see here Georgia is very close to Russia and Armenia, Turkey. So a big part of Georgia is in the Caucasus Mountains, which are very high mountains, up to 5,000 meters and more. So quite a big part of the country is mountainous. And in several areas there is a very fragile ecosystem. So from 2009 to 2010, the ITC, the Dutch university where I was working, has been part of a project, carry on a project together with the SEN, the Georgian Caucasus Environmental NGO Network, to work together in a project called Institutional Building for Natural Disaster Risk Reduction, where the target was assisting the Georgian Ministry of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources to enhance its capacity for an effective disaster risk reduction. And we try to overlap element at risk with natural hazard. The project was supported by the MATRA, the Social Transformation Programs for Central and Eastern Europe of the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the entire work wanted to focus on the introduction of institutional capacity building in disaster risk reduction via modern spatial approaches and technologies in the development of risk communication strategies in spatial planning in Georgia. That was very poor. This wanted to work together with the capacities of the local staff. I wanted to enhance the capacity of the local staff, their knowledge and their resources. After the deadline of the project, the 1st November 2011, this would have allowed the project to be completely self-sustainable. And so for this reason, several workshops, training courses and fieldwork have been organized. So we decided, my group decided was working, as I anticipated, on vulnerability and in a particular area of the country. This area is always affected by mud flow and debris flow hazard. Here we have a map of Georgia of the debris flow hazard. And as we can see, only 3 areas of the country are completely out of risk. The areas with the bright green. The rest of the country is affected by debris flow hazard. In particular, we were working there where there is a brown area with a red spot. So it's high risk and very high risk of disaster. Here we have another map, a geomorphological map. In the small one we see the map of Georgia. We were working in the Dushepi region in green, in the small map. And in particular, our case study was the village of Mleta. We can see there Zemo and Vemo Mleta, upper and lower Mleta. And Mleta is in a in a part of the Caucasus, more or less, the altitude is 1,500 meters. So in a mountain area, together with many other villages. The geology is represented by unconsolidated sediments and shales. And there are very active processes. We can see landslides, canyon, and erosion processes. The slope is very steep. There is a big river, Aragvi. There is running downhill. And so in the environment, we can understand already that it's a bit unstable. It's very dynamic. Here we have some numbers. The percentage of the territory of the Dusheti at risk. Dusheti is a surface of almost 3,000 square kilometers. Only the 32% of the territory is completely out of risk. And there are 291 villages, only 93 are completely out of risk. Next. Here we have a picture that I took during our workshop, where a participant to the course she was working for the Georgian Meteorological Service, and she's showing an aerial photograph of exactly of the same area of the geomorphological map that I showed you previously. And if we take a look, to the aerial photograph, we can recognize the Aragvi River, the village of Leta. Here in the middle, we see a very big alluvial fan taking all the debris down to the village until the river. A big canyon with all the active erosion processes. And I don't know if it's easy. For me, it's quite easy to recognize also that some slopes are very steep. So if we consider this unstable environment together with the climate factor, here we see the climate graph. The climate is continental. There are two seasons where the rainfall values are very high, spring and autumn. So in springtime, as we can see, there is a season where there are the highest record of rainfall. This is accompanied also by an increase of the temperatures, and this leads to the snow and the ice on top of the mountain to melt and to soak completely the soil with water, and also the river beds, so the rivers start to overflow. On the right side, we have a table, a rainfall table of April 2010. When we arrived there in autumn 2010, we saw the result of the last extreme event. There was a debris flow event. It took place the 24th of April 2010. The 24th of April in the morning, from the Lumisi mountain, a huge amount of water, sediments, debris and big boulders burst in the village, making very heavy damage. And if we consider the value of the rainfall value of that day is only 24 millimeters, which is not a big amount of water. But if we consider that it was raining like this during all the months, and again the snow and the ice melting from the mountain was also coming to the valley, we can understand that it's easy that some things can trigger and explode in extreme events. So these are some pictures that I took when I go there. The upper pictures explain. They show the alluvial fan that we saw previously in the aerial photograph, with a very thick layer of sediments, and in the background there is the village of Leta. The lower pictures represent the same subject, which is a farm, taken in the distance of 1 year. So the one on the left has been taken by a colleague of mine in June 2010. And the one on the right, it has been taken by the end of September 2010. So June 2009, September 2010. The house with the white roof has been completely destroyed. It doesn't exist anymore. The other one, it has been covered by the sediments, and the other houses reported some damage. the riverbed itself changed completely. So the environment changed quite a lot within 1 year. It's quite dynamic. Our activities, like the activities of every other group that was focusing in one aspect rather than another, our activities were organizing also workshops, field works, training courses, and the participants were SEN, that was our partner during the entire project, NIA, National Environmental Agency, Ministry for Environmental Protection and Natural Resources, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Emergency Management Department, Oxfam GB, and Red Cross. So in our preliminary analysis, we wanted to understand the role of each one of these representatives, their skill, and how work their profession in disaster prevention, management, and response. And also, even though if all these people work together in disaster management, why there are still some weak points and some breaches where it's necessary to work? Is it possible to work in a way to make a more efficient monitoring plan and intervention in case of disaster? So we decided to focus on vulnerability. Vulnerability is defined as the susceptibility of a community to the impact of natural hazard. There are multiple factors determining vulnerability. Geographic position, economical aspects, socio-cultural structures, institutional capacity, history, ongoing political processes, and many others. All these aspects participate they determine the vulnerability, which is also part of the equation. The equation of the risk. Indeed, risk is given by hazard, the product of the hazard per vulnerability per element at risk. The vulnerability is the result of physical, social, economic, environmental aspects. In our case, we decided to choose Mleta as a representative case study because it's very vulnerable and is quite a good representative village. It's an average village settled in Georgian Caucasus. Like Mleta, there are hundreds of villages like this, dislocated all along Georgian Caucasus, facing hazard constantly. Thank you. So when we arrived there in autumn, what we saw was the results of this debris flow. Mleta was suddenly threatened by the double action of the Arabia River. There was overflowing in the Lumisi mountain behind. There was coming down, was releasing water and mud and boulders. And all these debris reach the Georgian military road. That is the only highway, the only infrastructures connected Mleta with the rest of the country. So in a first moment, Mleta was isolated. There was no way to bring them the first aid and to support them. The river started to overflow and to erode the riverbed. The pillars of the bridge of the Georgian military road started to collapse. 15 houses were in the riverbed, so the first floor was completely under the level of the water. 9 houses were destroyed. All the plantation, cattle, poultry was destroyed and missing. And the food supply was spoiled. So many families, after this event, found themselves homeless and with no food supplies for the following period. Here we see the Church of St. George, which that for the area is a very important building from a religious point of view, cultural, historical point of view. When we arrived there, the monks, together with other workers of the village, were rebuilding the church thanks to some donation of private citizens. They were trying to prepare themselves before the winter because after 1 month, the very cold winter was starting. So we decided to work together not only with the participants to the project and to our workshop, but also involving the local communities of Leka and to work on their vulnerability. So we finally had two groups of people, two groups of actors, those who are the experts, let's say, working in disaster management, and the people involved in the disaster because they are the ones affected by the disasters. This is quite difficult sometimes. We decided to use in our survey, because it was a fieldwork, a program called Cyber Tracker, which is a program developed for Participatory GIS. There are many programs nowadays like Cyber Tracker. It's also very popular with Shahidi. In our case, we decided to use this program because it has been developed to work in remote areas of the planet, also where there are people that not necessarily can speak our same language. Maybe they have a different writing, maybe they have no writing at all. So the developers of the program developed also some specific icons that are officially recognized by the program, and it's possible to work with images. A part of these icons, in case of need, depending on the kind of work that we are going to do, it's also possible to import some new icons. It's possible to take pictures, recording sound, videos, and it's user-friendly. It's free to download. It's an open source program. It's necessary to have, of course, a smartphone or a mobile device, but it's free to download. So it's usable for someone having no skill of computer technology and programs, or very low skills, but it can be interfaced also with other programs. It was possible to use Cyber Tracker interfacing with other GIS and remote sensing programs to work with maps and satellite images. For someone, of course, that needs to use the program at another level. This image is an example of a screen. I produced this screen, this template before going on fieldwork. So this screen is representing what I wanted to collect, the information that I wanted to collect when I was on fieldwork. I wanted to work on vulnerability. I wanted to understand the local community of Leka, how exposed to the vulnerability they are. So I wanted to take information about the knowledge of the people, about the hazard, about the place where they live. I wanted to know if there were official evacuation sites designed by the government for them in case of extreme events, but also not official evacuation sites that the people, through the years and through the generations, detected because they understand, they know the territory where they live. And many other information that could have been useful for me for my future work. More than this, Cyber Tracker is a program for tracking. So of course, turning on the GPS, it records constantly the position where I am during my survey. So now comes another problem, the problem of trust. Working together with these two groups of people is not always easy because they don't speak the same language, but in the sense that they see things from a different point of view. In my case, for example, the people of Leka, especially in the beginning, were complaining that they were feeling abandoned by the government because they didn't see, in first place, they didn't see any first aid coming when they needed it. And second, they didn't see any economical support. They were in a hurry when we arrived there to rebuild the village because the winter was coming. And they were receiving economical support from private citizens making donations. But the government were having some delay in supporting them in this sense. So they were feeling completely abandoned. On the other side, often it happens that people working at a higher level, scientists, experts, not only accept to work with local communities because they think that the information provided by them is unreliable, is not the traditional scientific approach. So it's a useless information. So we're trying to work a lot on the fact that PGIS and participatory methods are not a substitute of the traditional scientific methods, but they are complementary. And of course, any information that is not collected is a lost information. As a scientist or as a person working in some kind of problems, when we do fieldwork, when we go collecting data and information, anyway, we collect data, then we filter data, we analyze, we process, and we use what is useful for us for the future work. We should do the same with PGIS and all the information coming from local communities. We need to filter, we need to analyze, we need to use what is useful for us, but we have to realize that excluding completely this kind of information is simply a loss. So, during this experiment, during this project, the inhabitants of Mleta were demonstrating to be very keen in working together with us and to provide all the information regarding their experience, their difficulties, their fear, and their knowledge on the hazard. So in this way we were understanding their vulnerability and how they coped during these extreme events. On the other side, the people involved working with us were understanding that understanding the vulnerability was taken to a better modeling of these main criticalities, and this was taken to a better spatial planning and risk management. Looking at the vulnerability from the point of view of these local communities means to learn about several aspects of the hazard components, and trying to it's easier to understand the capacities of local communities for resilience and coping. Here we have a few images of the work that we have been doing during the field work. The participants to the workshop working together with women and men and young people, even the monks in the local village. So we were working with paper maps, we were working with a cyber tracker, going around and taking information with the smartphones. The monks were, for example, providing information regarding how they were going to rebuild again the church. The church was already destroyed during a mud flow in 2006. They were just finishing to rebuild the church, and again in 2010 was destroyed again by this debris flow. So yeah, they were telling us their experience, which area they were selecting to build these kind of places where they were working and living. So these are the outputs. The outputs of the entire project are the Atlas of Natural Hazard and Risk of Georgia, explaining a bit the project, showing some maps of hazard, vulnerability, exposure, and the web-based Risk Atlas, where it's possible to explore several parts: disaster reporting, disaster database, hazard and risk maps, hazard and risk profile, and background information. The background information, of course, explain again the project, our approach to the project, the methodology, the programs that we use, and also provides interesting information regarding there are emergency numbers that is possible to call in case of emergency, and also some tips how to behave in case of emergency for flooding or earthquakes or landslides. And so these are actually addressing to everyone. In particular, in disaster reporting, there are some maps. I'm sorry, I'm making your. Thank you. So in disaster reporting, there are some maps that is possible to visualize and to see, and it's possible to log in two ways. There is the public reporting and authorized reporting. Public reporting is open to all the people that want to upload voluntarily information. They can open thematic maps, or they can upload information regarding a specific event happening in a specific part of the country. While authorized reporting is addressed specifically for experts working with official maps, of course. So at the time, the partner of the project, and then of course it was addressed to people working for local authorities or government or those working in disaster management. So as we can see, even the outputs want to be open to all kind of people, like at every level, expert and local communities, people interested in know better about the hazards. And I can do it. Okay, so because we found out that PGIS and participatory methods make easier to understand the vulnerability of local communities affected by hazard. This means also, working on the vulnerability means to make the local community stronger, so less exposed to the risk of hazard. And also it means to involve the local communities in an open and constant dialogue with those in power, those that take the decision for spatial planning and management, warning programs. And this reduces also the gaps that there is between the two groups. On the other side, people working in disaster management can focus better and can improve spatial planning and policy decision. And this approach can be used in every stage of disaster management, from prevention to preparation, response and recovery. And then last remarks for Cybertracker, we find it a very useful tool for those who want to work in community-based disaster risk management, because it's user-friendly and it can be used really at several levels, and it's quite precise and it's open source. So, no. Okay, here I put some links to the project. The links from ITC, the one from SEN, and then the direct link to the web, to the GeoPortal, to the web-based risk atlas, and the one to the Atlas of Natural Hazard and Risk of Georgia. Of course, opening one link is possible to switch to another one, and we are all connected. Thank you.